much for me if she quit her job. I realized that I wanted her to be my partner and my best friend for the rest of my life. So I knelt and popped the question. I had bought an expensive, beautiful engagement ring the day before, and she was so stunned when she saw it. Lily looked so beautiful at that very moment, and I couldn't believe it when she finally said yes. We kissed and hugged, and I took her out for a lavish dinner downtown. She ended up quitting her job the very next day, and we began planning our wedding. I'm not exaggerating when I say it was the happiest day of my life. She was dressed in a long, gorgeous white gown and had never looked more beautiful. We've been married for 4 years now, and I don't regret my decision for a single second. She's gone back to study and is going to be graduating next month. Lily said she wanted to try for a child after she was done with her studies, so I'm really excited about those two things happening. We sure proved my friends and family wrong, and they all adore her now. Actually, I think my mom might even like her more than she does me. She still dances nowadays, but only for me. And she's still amazing at it, by the way. Thanks for watching!
Sure that Kyle would be just as excited as I was. Finally, my 18th birthday had arrived. I had a meeting with the lawyer, and then I had to meet with Kyle. I wanted to get a checkup by the doctor before mentioning the pregnancy to Kyle. During the meeting with the lawyer, I was asked to sign some papers as he handed over the accounts to me. "Don't spend it all in one place." He smiled as I handed him back the signed papers. "I won't," I chuckled. As soon as I left the lawyer's office, I decided to take a trip to the doctor's office. After about 30 minutes sitting in the waiting room, the door to the doctor's office opened. "Don't forget to take the prenatal vitamins. They will be good for you and the baby. Daddy, take care of Mummy and the baby." My jaw dropped and my heart sank, and I looked up and saw my mother and Kyle had just stepped out of the doctor's office. I quickly pulled a magazine that I was reading in front of my face and sat quietly in the corner of the crowded office. I bit my lips as I tried to hold back the tears. I peeked from behind the magazine and watched in horror as my mother and my boyfriend left hand in hand. I was heartbroken. My mother and my boyfriend? I left the doctor's office soon after and sat in the car, still not believing what I just saw. If you were in my shoes, what would you do? Should I confront them, or should I just take my $5 million and disappear? Please comment your answers down below. My mom and I were never close, and she only welcomed me around her when my parents had dinner parties for clients. Even their clients would remark, "Diane, I don't see any pictures with you and Victoria, only her and Victor." My mother would always chuckle, "You know girls and their fathers," before changing the conversation. I know it feels strange, but sometimes I feel as though she is not even my mom. My dad, on the other hand, would always make time for me. He gave me everything I asked for, and my mom never seemed to approve. In her eyes, my life was too easy. "You are spoiling her, Victor. She's going to be too soft for this cruel world out there," she said harshly. I often heard her discussing with my dad wanting to send me to a boarding school, but he would hear nothing of the sort and always dismissed her. But before I go on, please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. You will become mega rich when you're older. Every year, my dad would take a yearly trip with his college buddy, Eric. One week after my dad left for his trip, I was home alone watching movies when the phone rang. "Hello?" I said, my focus still on the movie that I was watching. The person on the other end informed me that the plane that my dad and Eric were in crashed, and there were no survivors. The phone fell from my hand and I burst into tears. I cried my eyes out at the funeral, and I felt I had lost the only person who had ever loved me. I felt as though I had lost my best friend. Shortly after the funeral, my father's lawyer approached my mom and I and asked us to meet him at his office later that afternoon. When we arrived at the office, he greeted us. "I'm sorry for your loss. Let's get down to business, shall we?" I sat down. "Do I really need to be here?" I sniffled, my eyes puffy from crying. "I could drop her off at home and come back," my mom said sweetly, rubbing my hand. I looked at her with a raised eyebrow. "You need to be here since this includes you as well," the lawyer said, looking through the papers on his desk. My mom quickly removed her hand from mine and placed them on her lap. The lawyer read the will, and my eyes widened with surprise as my dad left me an inheritance of $5 million while my mom got to keep the house. I was only 16, so my money was placed in an account, and when I reached age 18, the money would be released to me. My mom yelled as she threw her hands up in the air at the lawyer. "What is the meaning of this? Where is my money? I was his wife!" The lawyer handed my mom a letter as he watched her sternly without saying a word. I watched my mom's face contort angrily as her eyes followed the words on the paper. Without another word, my mom stormed out of the office with the letter in her hand. I thanked the lawyer and exited the office. $5 million, I whispered as I headed to the car park. To my surprise, when I got to the car park, my mother was not there. She left without me. Since I did not have any money on me to take a bus, I had no choice but to walk home. The next year of my life was miserable. My mom moved all my things into the garage, and I was only allowed into the house to use the bathroom. I told your father that the world was a cruel, cruel place, but he doesn't listen. It's time for you to learn how the world works, Victoria, my mother said harshly when I asked her how I was supposed to survive without money. Shortly after my mom moved me to the garage, I took a job at the community library after school since I was no longer given an allowance. At the library, I was able to worry about. Martha was right. I had no choice but to wait it out and see. It's not like I could go to the police because then Mr. and Mrs. Washington would be contacted, and I really didn't want that. The last 3 months working there had actually been great, and it wasn't like anything I expected. Maybe everything I heard about the Washingtons were rumors, but I really didn't want to find out the hard way. I returned to Joshua's room and I decided to sit in the chair next to his bed and wait until he got home. He had some explaining to do. I woke up the next morning and realized that Joshua's bed was made, but he wasn't in it. Damn it, did he even come home? I jumped up from the bed and ran to the kitchen as though someone was chasing me. There, Joshua sat having breakfast by the kitchen counter, having a conversation with Martha. I looked at him and at Martha, who smiled at me. "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" she asked. She had that "I told you" look in her eyes. I decided that there and then wasn't the time or place to drill Joshua about where he had been the night before. I walked out of the kitchen and went to get ready for the day. Why did Joshua disappear last night? Where did he go? Why didn't he try this stunt when his parents were around? I had too many questions and no answers. I needed answers before I had to speak to Mr. Washington. That night, I did the same routine. I instructed Joshua to go to bed, which he did without complaint. I got dressed, sneakers and all, and put my robe on and went to bed and waited. Sure enough, I heard my door creak open, then close. I jumped up and slowly opened the adjoining door to see Joshua climbing out of the window. "And where do you think you're going?" I said to myself as I quickly pulled off my robe. I felt my inner private eye emerge, and I quickly made it downstairs and out the front door just in time to see Joshua running across the estate. I followed Joshua. It's a good thing I had many years running down toddlers, so I was able to keep up at a safe distance so I would not be spotted. I watched as Joshua dodged between 2 bushes and disappeared. I quickly followed. There were 2 bars that had been cut to make an escape route. I squeezed myself between the bars and followed. He walked until he reached the shabbier part of town until he came to a narrow alley. I continued to lurk from the shadows. He stopped in front of a red door. I watched as he knocked on the door. A slot in the door opened and Joshua looked around before whispering something to the person on the other side. The door opened and Joshua disappeared into the room. I couldn't leave there without Joshua, but I also didn't want to cause him harm either. I needed reinforcements, so I called a good friend of mine, Tony Burton. I told him about what was happening and he said he would be right there. "So what's the deal with this kid?" Tony asked as we sat in the van close to the alleyway. It was a dead end, so Joshua only had one way to get out of the alley. "Why doesn't his father just hire a bodyguard for him anyway?" Tony asked. "Well, for starters, I think all the rumors about the Washington family are false. I've been working there for months, and I haven't seen a henchman or even so much as a gun." "All great. I think I'm going to love working here." We sat and chatted whilst I drank my tea. Sean was so funny, and we really hit it off. When he left the office, I sat there thinking to myself about how cute he was. We really had a good connection. The rest of the morning went by like a flash. I couldn't believe it when one of the other girls told me that it was time for my lunch break. "There's a company cafeteria on the 12th floor," she said. "Most of us head up there for lunch." When I got to the cafeteria, I looked at the list of things they had. I didn't want to waste all my wages on an expensive lunch, so I just picked up a packet of chips and a bottle of water. I put them on my tray and joined the queue to pay. I was just about to reach the cashier when someone tapped me on the shoulder. It looked like it was Sean again. "Hi, Sean," I said. "No, it's not Sean, it's Sam," he said. "I thought I might find you in here." Sam looked down at my tray. "Is that your lunch? We can get you something better than that. It's my treat." He picked up a lasagna and a fruit bowl and put it on his tray. "Go find a table and I'll pay for this," he said. I went and sat down. Sam joined me and we sat and ate our lunch together. We got on so well. He had me in fits of laughter, telling me silly jokes and stuff. I couldn't believe how kind he was. Both of the twins were really nice. The next day, I was walking along the hallway at school with Louise when I saw one of the twins walking towards us. "Hi, Tessa," he said. I wanted to ask you something. Would you like to go to the prom with me? Oh, and by the way, I'm Sam." I couldn't believe that he actually liked me. I never thought I would be so lucky. I was about to say yes when I heard a voice behind me. "What's going on?" I turned around. It was Sean standing there. "Oh, hi," I said. "Sam has just asked me to go to the prom with him." "Wait, no, I want you to go to the prom with me," said Sean. I looked at them both. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They both wanted to take me to the prom? "I saw her first," screamed Sean. "She's my date." "No, she isn't. She's going with me," Sam screamed back. I looked at them arguing with each other. It was the first time in my life that two boys were fighting over me. Eventually, they stopped arguing and turned to me. "There's nothing else for it," Sam said. "You will have to choose who you want to go with." I had no idea how I was going to make that decision. "I can't choose between you both," I said. "What if you make it some sort of competition?" said Louise. "Then whoever wins gets to take you to the prom." "Yes, that's a good idea," said Sam. "You will have to decide what the competition will be," Louise went on. I didn't know what to say. Everyone was crowding around me. "Choose, choose, choose," they chanted. Eventually, I said the first thing that popped into my head. "Okay, a running race around the school field." The twins both agreed to race each other, so after school that afternoon, we all headed down to the school